Dylan wiped the sweat from his forehead as he climbed the rocky trail that led deeper into the Washington forest. The morning sun was just starting to peek through the tall pine trees, casting long shadows across the forest floor. He had been hiking since dawn, checking some of the remote trails he used for his wilderness tours. As a guide in the small town of Cedar Falls, he knew these woods better than anyone. The air was crisp and clean, filled with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Dylan loved mornings like this. No tourists asking endless questions, no cell phone service to distract him, just the peaceful sounds of nature waking up. Birds chirped overhead while squirrels scurried through the underbrush. This was his sanctuary. He was about 3 miles from the nearest road when he heard something that didn't belong. Between the natural forest sounds, there was a human voice. Someone was crying. Dylan stopped walking and listened carefully. The crying was coming from somewhere ahead, beyond a thick cluster of fir trees. He quickened his pace, pushing through the branches until he reached a small clearing. There, sitting on a fallen log with her head in her hands, was a woman. Her dark hair was tangled with leaves and twigs. Her clothes were torn and dirty, but Dylan could tell they had been expensive. Her black shoes were completely wrong for hiking. They looked like they belonged in an office building, not a forest. "Hey, are you okay?" Dylan called out softly, not wanting to startle her. The woman's head snapped up. Her eyes were red from crying, and there were scratches on her face from tree branches. She looked terrified for a moment, like a deer caught in headlights. I'm lost," she said, her voice shaky. "I've been walking for hours. I can't find my way out." Dylan approached slowly, keeping his hands visible and his voice calm. He had dealt with lost hikers before, but something about this woman seemed different. Most lost tourists were frustrated or annoyed. This woman looked genuinely scared. "It's going to be okay," he said. "I'm Dylan. I'm a wilderness guide from Cedar Falls. What's your name?" The woman hesitated for a moment as if she wasn't sure what to say. "Maya," she finally answered. "My car broke down and I was trying to find help. But I got turned around and—" She gestured helplessly at the forest surrounding them. Dylan studied her face. There was something in her eyes that suggested she wasn't telling him the whole truth. But he had learned not to push people. Sometimes folks ended up in the woods for reasons they didn't want to share right away. "Where did you leave your car?" he asked. Maya looked uncertain. I'm not sure exactly. There was a dirt road and some kind of metal sign. It's all a blur now. That was strange." Dylan knew every road and sign for miles around. But Maya was clearly in distress, and that was what mattered right now. "Don't worry about it," he said. "The important thing is getting you somewhere safe. How long have you been out here?" "Since yesterday evening," Maya said, wrapping her arms around herself. "I found a spot under some trees to sleep, but it was so cold and dark. Every little sound scared me." Dylan felt bad for her. Spending a night alone in the forest without proper gear or experience must have been terrifying. He noticed she didn't have a backpack, water bottle, or any supplies at all. Just a small leather purse that looked expensive but completely useless for survival. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Maya shook her head, but Dylan could see she was favoring her left foot. Her fancy shoes were falling apart, and he guessed she had blisters. "Let me take a look at that foot," he said gently. Maya seemed embarrassed, but let him examine her shoe. As he suspected, there were angry red blisters on her heel and toes. Her feet weren't used to this kind of walking. "We need to get you out of here," Dylan said. "But the nearest road is about 8 miles away, and some of it's pretty rough terrain. With your feet like this, it's going to take us a while." Maya's face fell. "I can't walk 8 miles. I can barely stand up." Dylan considered their options. He could try to call for help, but his phone had no signal out here. The helicopter rescue service was expensive and usually reserved for serious emergencies, and something told him Maya might not want that kind of attention anyway. "Tell you what," he said. "I've got some supplies back at my cabin about 2 miles from here. We can patch up your feet, get you some better shoes, and rest up. Then tomorrow we can tackle the longer hike out." Maya looked uncertain. "I don't want to be any trouble." "No trouble at all," Dylan said. "It's what I do. Besides, these woods can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. There are steep cliffs, old mine shafts, and the weather can change fast." As if to prove his point, dark clouds were starting to gather overhead. Dylan could smell rain in the air. "Come on," he said, offering Maya his arm for support. "Let's get moving before this storm hits." As they walked slowly through the forest, Dylan couldn't help but notice more details about Maya. Her torn clothes were made from expensive fabric. Her purse was real leather, probably worth more than Dylan made in a month. Even her jewelry looked valuable, a delicate watch that seemed out of place in the wilderness. But it was her behavior that really caught his attention. Maya kept looking over her shoulder, as if she expected someone to follow them. When they heard a stick break in the distance, and probably just a deer, she grabbed Dylan's arm tightly. "What was that?" she whispered. "Just forest sounds," Dylan said reassuringly. "Animals moving around, trees settling. You'll get used to it." But Maya didn't look convinced. She seemed to relax only slightly as they continued walking. Dylan found himself curious about this mysterious woman. Her accent suggested education and money. Her hands were soft, not used to manual work. Yet she was trying hard to keep up, even though every step clearly hurt her feet. "So what do you do for work?" Dylan asked, trying to make conversation and keep her mind off the pain. Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Business," she said finally. Nothing too exciting, another vague answer. Dylan decided not to push. Everyone had a right to their privacy. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, with Dylan pointing out interesting plants and helping Maya navigate the rougher patches of trail. Despite her obvious discomfort, Maya seemed genuinely interested in what he had to say about the forest. "How do you know so much about all this?" she asked as Dylan showed her which berries were safe to eat. "Grew up here," Dylan said. "My dad taught me everything when I was a kid. Been exploring these woods my whole life." "That sounds nice," Maya said wistfully. "Having roots somewhere." There was something sad in her voice that made Dylan glance at her. But Maya was looking ahead at the trail, her expression unreadable. As they approached Dylan's cabin, the first drops of rain began to fall. Maya looked relieved to see the small wooden structure come into view. "Home sweet home," Dylan said. "At least for tonight." Maya nodded gratefully. But Dylan noticed she was still glancing nervously at the forest behind them, as if she expected danger to emerge from the trees at any moment. The rain started coming down harder as Dylan pushed open the cabin door. Maya limped inside, looking around at the simple one-room space. There was a small wood stove in the corner, a basic kitchen area, and a couple of chairs by a wooden table. Everything was neat and practical. "It's not much, but it's dry," Dylan said, lighting an oil lamp since the cabin had no electricity. The warm glow filled the room, making it feel cozy despite the storm brewing outside. Maya sank into one of the chairs with obvious relief. "It's perfect," she said, and Dylan could tell she meant it. "Let me take a look at those feet," Dylan said, pulling out a first aid kit from under the sink. "We need to clean those blisters before they get infected." As Dylan gently cleaned Maya's wounds, he noticed her hands. They were soft and manicured, clearly not used to any kind of rough work. Her nails were perfectly shaped, probably done at an expensive salon, but she didn't complain once as he applied antiseptic to the cuts. "You're tougher than you look," Dylan said, wrapping her feet in clean bandages. Maya smiled for the first time since he'd found her. "I surprise myself sometimes." Dylan found an old pair of hiking boots that might fit her. "These belong to my sister," he explained. "She left them here years ago. They should be better than those office shoes." While Maya tried on the boots, Dylan started a fire in the wood stove. The rain was really coming down now, drumming loudly on the cabin roof. Lightning flashed outside, followed by thunder that made Maya jump. "Don't like storms?" Dylan asked. "Not really," Maya said quietly. "Too much noise. Makes it hard to hear if someone's coming." That was an odd thing to say. Dylan wondered who Maya thought might be coming for her. But he decided not to ask. Instead, he started preparing a simple dinner with the supplies he kept at the cabin. "I hope you're not a vegetarian," he said, opening a can of beef stew. "It's not fancy, but it's filling." "Anything is fine," Maya said. She watched him work, seeming fascinated by how he managed with the basic tools and simple ingredients. "You make it look so easy." "Practice," Dylan said. "When you grow up in a small town, you learn to make do with what you have." As they ate dinner by the light of the oil lamp, Dylan found himself studying Maya's face. She was pretty, but there was something more than that. She had an intelligent look in her eyes, like she was always thinking about something complex, but she also seemed tired, as if she'd been carrying a heavy burden for a long time. "So what's Cedar Falls like?" Maya asked. "Small," Dylan said with a laugh. "Population about 1,500. Everyone knows everyone else's business. We have one main street, 2 restaurants, a hardware store, and a gas station. That's about it." "Sounds peaceful," Maya said wistfully. "It can be. Sometimes too peaceful, if you know what I mean. Not much excitement for young people." Most folks my age move away to the city after high school. But you stayed? Dylan nodded. My dad got sick a few years back. Someone had to take care of him and keep the family business going. I run wilderness tours for tourists in the summer, fix cars in the winter. Maya was quiet for a moment. Do you ever regret it? Staying, I mean. Sometimes, Dylan said honestly. I used to dream about being a park ranger in Alaska or Montana. Somewhere wild and remote, but family is family, you know? Maya looked down at her hands. Not everyone feels that way about family. There was pain in her voice that made Dylan want to ask more questions, but Maya quickly changed the subject. Could you teach me some of the things you know about surviving out here? Dylan was surprised by the request. Sure, but why? You're not planning to get lost again, are you? Maya smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. You never know when it might come in handy. Dylan spent the next hour showing Maya basic survival skills. How to start a fire with matches and kindling. How to tell which plants were safe to eat. How to find water and purify it. Maya was a quick learner, paying careful attention to everything he said. You're a natural at this, Dylan said as Maya successfully started a small fire using the techniques he'd shown her. I've always been good at learning new things, Maya said. My parents, they made sure I had the best education money could buy. It was the first direct reference she'd made to having wealthy parents. Dylan filed that information away with everything else he'd noticed about her. The storm outside was getting worse. Wind rattled the cabin windows and the rain sounded like it was falling in sheets. Maya kept glancing toward the door, her body tense every time the wind made a strange sound. No one's going to find us out here in this weather, Dylan said gently. We're completely safe. How can you be sure? Maya asked. Because I know these woods better than anyone. This cabin is off the main trails. Even other guides don't know about it. My grandfather built it back in the 1960s as a hunting cabin. It's not on any maps. Maya seemed to relax slightly at this news. Good, she said softly. Around 10 o'clock, Dylan set up a sleeping area for Maya near the wood stove, using spare blankets and a camping pad. He would sleep in the corner by the door. Thank you, Maya said as he handed her a pillow. For everything. You didn't have to help me. Of course I did, Dylan said. That's what decent people do for each other. Maya looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You'd be surprised how rare that is in my world. Before Dylan could ask what she meant, Maya had turned away and was settling into her makeshift bed. Dylan lay awake for a while, listening to the storm and thinking about his mysterious guest. Everything about Maya suggested money and privilege, but she seemed genuinely grateful for his simple help. She was clearly running from something or someone, but she was trying hard to be strong and independent. Around midnight, Dylan was awakened by a sound that didn't belong. Through the storm, he thought he heard a truck engine in the distance. He lay still, listening carefully. The sound came and went, too faint to be sure. Dylan glanced over at Maya. She was awake too, staring at the ceiling with wide eyes. Did you hear that? She whispered. Probably just the storm, Dylan said quietly. Old trees falling, wind in the valleys. It can sound like all kinds of things, but Maya didn't look convinced. She pulled the blanket up to her chin and continued staring at the door as if expecting someone to break through it at any moment. Dylan stayed awake for another hour, listening. The sound didn't come again, but he could feel Maya's fear like a living thing in the small cabin. Whatever she was running from, it had her truly terrified. As the storm finally began to calm, Dylan made a decision. Tomorrow he would get Maya safely back to town. But first he needed to understand what kind of danger she thought she was in. Dylan woke up before dawn to the sound of dripping water. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind the fresh, clean scent of rain-washed forest. He quietly stirred the coals in the wood stove and added some kindling to warm the cabin before Maya woke up. When he looked over at her makeshift bed, Maya was already awake, staring out the window at the gray morning light. She looked like she hadn't slept much. Morning, Dylan said softly. How are the feet feeling? Maya sat up and tested her weight gingerly. Better, thanks to you, but I think I might have twisted my ankle during the night. It's pretty sore. Dylan came over to examine her ankle. It was swollen and tender to the touch. Not serious, but definitely something that would make hiking difficult. Looks like we might be here another day, he said. That ankle needs rest and the trails will be muddy and slippery after all that rain. Maya's face went pale. Another day? But what if... She stopped herself from finishing the sentence. What if what? Dylan asked gently. Maya was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with how much to tell him. Finally, she looked up and met his eyes. "Dylan, there are people looking for me. Bad people. And I'm not sure how much time I have before they figure out where I am." Dylan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. "What kind of bad people?" "The kind that don't ask questions first," Maya said quietly. "I got mixed up in something. It's complicated. I thought I could handle it on my own, but I was wrong." Dylan pulled up a chair and sat across from her. "Maya, if you're in real danger, we need to get you to the police." Maya shook her head quickly. "No police, not yet. It's not that simple. There are people involved. Powerful people. I need time to figure out how to handle this safely." "What about your family? Can't they help?" Maya let out a bitter laugh. "My family is part of the problem. They think they know what's best for me, but they don't understand. They want to lock me away somewhere safe where I can't make my own decisions." Dylan was starting to get a clearer picture. Maya came from money, that much was obvious, but it sounded like her wealthy family was trying to control her life, and she'd gotten involved with dangerous people while trying to break free. "So you ran away," Dylan said. "I ran away," Maya confirmed. "But I didn't plan very well. I thought I could just disappear for a while, figure things out. But I'm not very good at being on my own." Dylan looked at this woman who had survived a night alone in the forest with nothing but the clothes on her back. "I think you're tougher than you give yourself credit for." Maya smiled sadly. "You know what's funny? Yesterday, walking through the forest with you, learning about plants and survival, it was the most free I've felt in years. No one telling me what to do or who to be. Just me figuring things out." "What's your normal life like?" Dylan asked. Maya was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "Meetings. Boardrooms. People in expensive suits telling me what I should think about everything. My schedule planned down to the minute. Bodyguards following me everywhere I go. Bodyguards? My family's idea. They say it's for my safety, but sometimes it feels more like a prison." Maya stretched her sore ankle gingerly. "I know how that sounds. Poor little rich girl complaining about her problems." "Everyone's problems are real to them," Dylan said. "Money doesn't make things simple. Sometimes it makes them more complicated." They made breakfast together, eggs and coffee over the wood stove. Dylan noticed how Maya watched him work, copying his movements like she was memorizing everything. When he showed her how to crack eggs properly, she practiced until she got it right. "I've never cooked anything before," she admitted. "We always had people for that." "You're doing fine," Dylan said. "Cooking is just chemistry, and you seem smart enough to figure out chemistry." After breakfast, Dylan decided to check the area around the cabin. The storm had brought down several trees, and he wanted to make sure their path out was still clear. "I'll be back in an hour," he told Maya. "Keep the door locked, and don't open it for anyone but me." Maya nodded, but Dylan could see the fear in her eyes at the thought of being alone. He had been walking the perimeter for about 20 minutes when he found something that made his blood run cold. Fresh tire tracks in the mud, leading to within a quarter-mile of the cabin. The tracks were from a large vehicle, maybe a pickup truck or SUV, and they were recent, made after the storm ended. Dylan's mind raced. How had someone found them way out here? This was private property, miles from any main road. Only someone with serious resources and determination would track them this deep into the forest. He hurried back to the cabin, his senses on high alert for any signs of danger. Every snapping twig made him pause and listen. When he reached the cabin, Maya was pacing by the window, clearly agitated. "Thank God you're back," she said. "I heard something about 10 minutes ago." Sounded like voices in the distance. Dylan's stomach dropped. "Maya, we need to leave now." "What?" "But my ankle. There are fresh tire tracks leading toward this cabin. Someone knows we're here." Maya went white. Oh no, this is all my fault. I should have kept moving yesterday." "Hey," Dylan said, taking her by the shoulders. "This isn't your fault, but we need to focus on getting out of here safely." He quickly packed essential supplies while Maya put on the hiking boots. Her ankle was painful, but fear was giving her strength. "There's an old mining trail about half a mile north of here," Dylan explained as they prepared to leave. "It leads to an abandoned mine. From there we can circle around and come out near the main road without being seen." Maya nodded, trying to look brave. "How long will it take?" "With your ankle, maybe 3 hours if we take it slow." As they prepared to slip out the back of the cabin, Maya grabbed Dylan's arm. "Dylan, I need you to know something. The people looking for me, they're not just going to give up and go home. And if they find out you helped me, they might come after you too. Dylan looked into her frightened eyes and made a decision that would change everything. Then we better make sure they don't find us, he said. They slipped quietly out of the cabin and into the dense forest, leaving behind the simple safety of the wooden walls for the uncertain protection of the wild woods. Behind them, the sound of approaching engines grew louder. Dylan led Maya through the thick forest, moving as quietly as possible. Her injured ankle slowed them down, but she pushed forward without complaint. Every few minutes, they stopped to listen for sounds of pursuit. After about an hour of careful hiking, they reached the old mining trail Dylan had mentioned. It was overgrown and barely visible, which was exactly what they needed. "We're getting close to the mine entrance," Dylan whispered. "There's a place we can hide and rest your ankle." The abandoned mine was built into the side of a rocky hill. The entrance was partially collapsed, but there was still a small opening they could squeeze through. Inside, the mine stretched back into darkness, providing the perfect hiding spot. Dylan used his flashlight to check that the area was safe, then helped Maya settle onto a flat rock near the entrance where they could still see outside. "This should buy us some time," Dylan said, offering Maya water from his canteen. Maya took a long drink, then looked at Dylan with an expression he'd never seen before. It was like she was making a difficult decision. "Dylan, I haven't been completely honest with you," she said quietly. "I figured that out," Dylan said with a small smile. "But it's okay. Everyone's got secrets. Not like this." Maya took a deep breath. "My real name is Maya Hartwell. My family owns Hartwell Industries. Maybe you've heard of them." Dylan nearly dropped his water bottle. Everyone had heard of Hartwell Industries. They made computer parts, had offices all over the world, and were worth billions of dollars. Their logo was on half the electronics in his house. "You're that Maya Hartwell?" Dylan asked, his voice coming out higher than he intended. Maya nodded miserably. "My father is Richard Hartwell. My mother sits on the boards of 6 different companies. I'm supposed to take over the business someday." Dylan stared at her, trying to process this information. The woman sitting next to him, wearing his sister's old hiking boots and eating canned stew, was one of the richest people in the country. "So when you said people were looking for you, Dylan began. "It's complicated," Maya said. "A few months ago, I made a bad decision. I got involved with some people who said they could help me prove myself to my family. They convinced me to invest in their company using money from our family trust." Dylan waited for her to continue. "It was all a scam," Maya said, her voice full of shame. "They took $50 million and disappeared. When my family found out, they were furious. They said I couldn't be trusted with any real responsibility." "That's when the bodyguards and the controlled schedule started?" Dylan asked. "It got worse. They hired a security company to watch me 24 hours a day. They monitored my phone calls, my emails, everywhere I went. They said it was to protect me, but I felt like a prisoner in my own life." Maya wiped away a tear that had started to fall. "Then last week I found out that the people who scammed me weren't done. They were planning to kidnap me and demand ransom from my family. The security company had evidence but hadn't told me about it." Dylan felt a chill. "So you ran?" "I panicked," Maya said. "I grabbed some cash and just started driving. I thought if I could disappear for a while, I could figure out how to handle everything. But I'm not good at being on my own. I've never had to take care of myself before." Dylan looked at her with new understanding. "The people chasing us now, are they the kidnappers or your family's security?" "I honestly don't know," Maya said. "Maybe both. My family has the resources to find anyone, anywhere, and the criminals are still out there too." They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of the forest. Dylan's mind was spinning. Yesterday, he'd been a simple small-town guy helping a lost woman. Now he was hiding in an abandoned mine with one of the richest people in America. "I guess this changes everything," Maya said quietly. "I understand if you want to just walk away. Call my family's security team and let them handle it." Dylan looked at Maya, really looked at her. Despite everything she'd just told him, she was still the same person who had learned to start a fire last night. The same person who had been grateful for canned stew and a dry place to sleep. "You know what's weird?" Dylan said. "You're probably worth more money than my entire town has seen in its whole history. But sitting here with you, talking to you, you're still just Maya, the person who was scared in the forest and needed help." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. I'm not used to people seeing me as just a person. Usually, once people know who I am, they either want something from me or they treat me like I'm made of glass. What do you want? Dylan asked. I mean, really want. Not what your family wants, not what's expected of you. What do you want? Maya was quiet for a long time, thinking. I want to feel useful, she said finally. I want to make decisions that matter. I want to help people, but not just by writing checks. I want to do something real. Like what? I don't know yet. But being out here with you, learning how to survive, feeling like I can take care of myself. It's the first time I've felt truly alive in years. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of voices echoing through the forest. They were still distant but getting closer. We need to keep moving, Dylan whispered. As they prepared to leave the mine, Maya grabbed his hand. Dylan, whatever happens, I need you to know something. These past 2 days with you have been the best days I've had in years. You treated me like a real person, not like a responsibility or a problem to solve. You are a real person, Dylan said. Money doesn't change that. They slipped out of the mine and continued along the old trail. Maya's ankle was feeling better, and they were able to move more quickly. But the voices behind them were getting closer. There's a ranger station about 2 miles from here, Dylan said as they walked. We can call for help from there. What if the wrong people answer? Maya asked. Then we'll figure it out together, Dylan said. Maya looked at him with surprise. Together? Dylan, you don't owe me anything. This isn't your fight. Maybe not, Dylan said. But I'm not the kind of person who abandons someone who needs help. Rich or poor doesn't matter to me. As they emerged from the densest part of the forest, they could see the ranger station ahead. It looked abandoned, but there might still be a working radio or phone inside. Behind them, the voices were getting much closer. Time was running out. Dylan and Maya reached the ranger station just as the voices behind them got close enough to make out words. The small wooden building looked like it hadn't been used in months, but Dylan knew there should be emergency equipment inside. The door's locked, Maya whispered. Trying the handle, Dylan pulled out his pocket knife and worked on the simple lock. After a few tense minutes, it clicked open. They slipped inside and quickly closed the door behind them. The station was dusty and dark, but Dylan found an old radio on a desk by the window. He turned it on and was relieved to hear static. Cedar Falls Emergency Services. This is Ranger Station 7, Dylan spoke into the microphone. Using the official call sign he remembered from his wilderness guide training, a familiar voice crackled back through the radio. Dylan, is that you? This is Chief Bradley. Where have you been? We've got people looking all over for you. Dylan felt relief wash over him. Tom Bradley had been the police chief in Cedar Falls for 20 years. If anyone could help them, it was Tom. Tom, I'm with someone who needs help. We're at the old ranger station on Mill Creek Trail. There are people chasing us, and I don't know if they're friendly or not. Understood. Tom's voice came back. Stay put. Help is on the way. Dylan set down the radio and looked at Maya, who was peering out the window nervously. I can see them, she whispered. 3 men in dark clothing. They're about 100 yards away, searching the trees. Do you recognize them? Dylan asked. Maya studied the figures carefully. I think, yes, one of them is from my family's security team, but I don't know about the other 2. Before Dylan could respond, his radio crackled again. Dylan, this is Tom. I've got some interesting people here at the station asking about you and a missing woman. Says they're private security, hired by the Hartwell family. You know anything about that? Maya and Dylan looked at each other. The moment of truth had arrived. Maya took the radio microphone from Dylan. Chief Bradley, this is Maya Hartwell. I'm safe with Dylan, but I need to speak with you directly before I talk to anyone from my family's security team. There was a long pause on the radio. Miss Hartwell, your family has been very worried about you. They have people all over the state looking for you. I know, Maya said, but there are things I need to explain first. About why I left and what I've learned. Another voice came through the radio, older, more authoritative. Maya, this is Director Johnson from Hartwell Security. Your parents are frantic with worry. We need to get you somewhere safe immediately. Maya's face tightened. Dylan could see her struggling with old fears about losing her independence. Mr. Johnson, I appreciate your concern, Maya said carefully. But I'm not coming back to the same situation I left. Things need to change. Miss Hartwell, you're not in a position to make demands. There are credible threats against your safety. Dylan could see Maya getting upset, so he gently took the radio from her. "This is Dylan Morrison," he said. "I've been with Miss Hartwell for 3 days. She's been through a lot, and she deserves to be heard before any decisions are made about her future." Over the next hour, with Chief Bradley acting as a mediator over the radio, Maya was able to tell her story. She explained about feeling trapped by her family's overprotective measures. She talked about wanting to prove herself and make meaningful decisions. She even admitted her mistakes with the investment that had gone wrong. Most importantly, she explained what she had learned about herself during her time in the forest. "I'm not the same person who ran away 3 days ago," Maya said. "I've learned that I'm stronger than anyone gave me credit for. I can take care of myself when I need to. But I also learned that accepting help from good people isn't a weakness." Director Johnson's voice came back, softer than before. "Maya, your parents just want you safe. The threats against you are real." "I understand that," Maya said. "But being safe and being alive are 2 different things. For the past year, I've felt like I was suffocating." Chief Bradley's voice cut in. "How about this? Miss Hartwell, you come into town with Dylan. You can talk to your security team and your parents on the phone. We can work out a plan that keeps you safe but gives you more freedom." Maya looked at Dylan questioningly. He nodded encouragingly. "Okay," Maya said into the radio. "But I want Dylan there with me. He's been the first person in a long time to treat me like a normal human being." 20 minutes later, a police SUV arrived at the ranger station, followed by a black sedan with the security team. Dylan was impressed by how calmly Maya handled the reunion with her family's people. She was polite but firm about her boundaries. The drive back to Cedar Falls gave Dylan time to think about everything that had happened. 3 days ago, he had been a simple small-town guide with a predictable life. Now he was sitting next to one of the richest women in America, and somehow she valued his opinion. At the police station, Maya spent 2 hours on the phone with her parents. Dylan could hear raised voices at times, but Maya held her ground. When she finally hung up, she looked exhausted but determined. "They're flying out here tomorrow," she told Dylan. "They want to meet you." "Me? Why?" Maya smiled. "Because I told them that you're going to help me figure out how to use our family's resources for something meaningful, something real." Over the next few weeks, Dylan watched Maya transform from a frightened runaway into a confident young woman with a clear purpose. She convinced her family to let her start a foundation focused on wilderness education and conservation. She wanted to create programs that would teach people the skills Dylan had taught her. Most people live their whole lives without understanding how to take care of themselves in nature, Maya explained to Dylan as they planned the foundation. "I want to change that." Dylan found himself becoming the foundation's first employee and program director. It wasn't the life he had planned, but it was better than anything he could have imagined. 6 months later, Dylan and Maya were leading a group of teenagers from the city on their first wilderness survival course. Watching Maya teach a scared 13-year-old how to start a fire, Dylan marveled at how much she had changed. "You know," Maya said to him as they watched the kids practice building shelters, "I used to think freedom meant having unlimited choices. But real freedom is knowing that you can handle whatever choices you make." Dylan smiled, remembering the frightened woman he had found crying in the forest. "You've come a long way from those office shoes," Maya laughed. "Best investment I ever lost." As the sun set over the forest that had brought them together, Dylan realized that sometimes getting lost is the only way to find where you really belong.